You made a decision today that you'll regret. Not a dramatic one, not a life-changing one, a small one, the kind that doesn't feel like a decision at all. Maybe you chose the easier path when the harder one was right. Maybe you avoided a conversation you knew you needed to have. Maybe you picked up your phone instead of doing the thing that actually mattered. You didn't think about it. That's the point. Because 90% of the decisions you make every single day are not made by the part of your brain you think is in charge. They are made by ancient, invisible, largely irrational systems running beneath your conscious awareness. Systems that were built for a world that no longer exists, responding to pressures that are no longer real, optimizing for outcomes that are no longer relevant. And those systems are making your choices. Right now, every day, in ways you cannot see. Here's what makes this urgent. The quality of your life is the sum of your decisions. Not your intentions, not your intelligence, not your values. Your decisions. And if the decisions are being made by systems you don't understand, systems you've never examined, then the life you're living is not entirely yours. This video is about taking it back. We're going through the psychology of choice, the real science of why we decide the way we do, where it goes wrong, and exactly what you can do to make better decisions starting today. Stay with me, because in about 10 minutes, I'm going to show you a decision-making pattern that is actively shaping every major outcome in your life, and you've probably never heard it named.
Let's start with the belief that needs to be dismantled first. You believe you are a rational decision maker. You believe that when you make a choice, especially an important one, you gather information, weigh the options, consider the consequences, and arrive at a logical conclusion. This is one of the most persistent and damaging myths in all of human psychology. Here's what the science actually shows. The conscious, rational part of your decision-making, the deliberate weighing of options you believe is driving your choices, accounts for a fraction of what is actually happening when you decide. Neuroscientist Benjamin Libet demonstrated decades ago that brain activity associated with a decision begins up to 10 seconds before the person becomes consciously aware of making that decision. Read that again. Your brain is making decisions before your conscious mind knows a decision is being made. The conscious experience of choosing, the feeling of deliberating, weighing, deciding, is in many cases a post hoc narrative, a story your conscious mind tells itself about a choice that has already been made by systems operating beneath awareness. You are not the author of your decisions as much as you are their narrator. And the systems doing the actual deciding? They are fast, automatic, emotionally driven, and extraordinarily susceptible to influences you cannot see. This is not a flaw. This is architecture. The human brain processes 11 million bits of information per second. The conscious mind can handle approximately 50. The gap between those two numbers is where most of your decisions live. Your unconscious systems handle the gap. They have to. And they do it with rules, shortcuts, patterns, heuristics that work well enough most of the time and catastrophically wrong in ways that are entirely predictable. Predictably wrong. That is the key. The mistakes your decision-making systems make are not random. They are consistent. They have names. They have mechanisms. They can be understood, anticipated, and, with the right knowledge, countered. That is what this video is. Let's start with the biggest one. Your brain uses mental shortcuts called cognitive biases to make fast decisions without requiring full conscious processing. These biases are not bugs. They are features, evolutionary adaptations that allowed humans to make survival decisions quickly in environments where speed mattered more than precision. The problem is that you are no longer living in that environment, and the biases remain. The first bias, loss aversion. The single most powerful force in human decision-making is not the desire for gain. It is the fear of loss. Psychological research consistently shows that losses feel approximately twice as powerful as equivalent gains. Losing $100 feels roughly twice as bad as gaining $100 feels good. This asymmetry shapes every decision you make. It is why you stay in bad situations longer than you should, because leaving feels like losing, even when staying is costing you more. It is why you avoid necessary risks, because the potential loss feels larger than the equivalent potential gain, even when the math says otherwise. It is why you hold on to things, relationships, jobs, beliefs, objects, long past the point where they serve you, because releasing them feels like a loss, even when holding them is the actual cost. Loss aversion is not irrational. It was essential for survival. Losing food, shelter, or social connection was catastrophically worse than gaining an equivalent amount. But in the modern world, where most decisions are not survival decisions, loss aversion consistently pushes you toward choices that protect the status quo at the expense of growth. Every time you don't make the move, have the conversation, take the risk, ask yourself, am I choosing this because it's genuinely right, or because I'm avoiding the feeling of loss? The second bias, present bias. Your brain dramatically overvalues the present moment relative to the future. Not slightly, dramatically. A reward available right now is processed by your brain as exponentially more valuable than the same reward available in 3 months, even when the future reward is objectively larger. This is why you eat the food that feels good now and ignore the body you want in a year. Why you avoid the difficult conversation today and pay the relationship cost for months. Why you choose the comfortable option now and wonder years later why your life looks the way it does. Present bias is the engine behind almost every short-term decision that contradicts your long-term values. And here is the specific way it destroys decision quality. It makes your future self a stranger. Neuroimaging studies show that when people think about their future selves, the brain regions that activate are the same regions that activate when thinking about a stranger, not yourself. Your future self is neurologically a different person to your brain, and you consistently make decisions that sacrifice that stranger's well-being for your own present comfort. The third bias, confirmation bias. Once you believe something, your brain stops looking for evidence that you are wrong. It starts looking for evidence that you are right. This is confirmation bias, and it operates at every level of your decision-making. When you are considering a major decision, a career move, a relationship choice, a financial decision, your brain does not objectively evaluate the evidence. It selectively notices evidence that supports what you already want to do. It unconsciously minimizes or dismisses evidence that contradicts it, and it presents you with a feeling of having thought carefully about the decision, when what you actually did was build a case for the conclusion you'd already reached emotionally. This is why smart people make bad decisions and defend them confidently. Intelligence does not protect you from confirmation bias. It makes you better at rationalizing the conclusions your emotions already reached. The fourth bias, the sunk cost fallacy. You continue investing in things, time, money, energy, relationships, because of what you've already put in. Not because of what the future holds. Not because continued investment makes rational sense. Because of what you've already lost. A project that isn't working, you keep going because you've spent 2 years on it. A relationship that is wrong, you stay because you've invested so much. A path that isn't right, you continue because turning back feels like wasting everything you've already done. The rational truth is simple and devastating. What you've already spent is gone. It is not coming back regardless of what you decide now. The only question that matters is, given where I am today, what is the best path forward from here? But sunk cost pulls you backward. It anchors your future decisions to past investments that can no longer be changed. And it costs you years. Here is something the bias research leads to that most people are not prepared for. Your decisions are being made by your environment before you consciously engage with them. This is called choice architecture, the design of the context in which decisions are made. And it shapes your choices more powerfully than your intentions, your values, or your conscious deliberation. Every environment you move through has been designed, either deliberately or by default, to push your decisions in specific directions. The layout of a grocery store determines what you buy before you decide what you want. The default settings on every app you use determine your behavior before you consider your preferences. The social environment of your workplace determines your ambition level before you consciously reflect on your goals. The physical arrangement of your home determines your habits before you exercise any willpower. Defaults are the most powerful force in choice architecture. Research consistently shows that people overwhelmingly choose the default option, whatever requires no action to select, regardless of whether it is the option they would choose if they deliberated carefully. Organ donation rates across countries vary dramatically, not because of cultural differences in generosity, but entirely based on whether the default is opt-in or opt-out. Retirement savings rates vary dramatically, not because of differences in financial wisdom, but based on whether enrollment is the default. The default wins, almost every time. And here is the critical implication for your life. If you have not deliberately designed the defaults of your own environment, someone else has designed them for you. And those designs serve their interests, not yours. The phone on your nightstand is a default. The apps on your home screen are defaults. The food in your kitchen is a default. The social media feeds you scroll are defaults, designed by engineers whose job is to keep you in the feed as long as possible. Every unexamined default in your life is a decision that has been made for you by someone whose incentives do not align with your well-being. This is not conspiracy, this is design. And the response is not outrage, it is deliberate redesign of your own environment. Because the most powerful thing you can do for your decision quality is not to try harder to resist bad choices. It is to make bad choices harder to make, and good choices easier. Remove the friction from what you want to do. Add friction to what you don't. Don't rely on willpower in a bad environment. Change the environment. The person who keeps junk food out of the house makes better food decisions than the person with iron willpower surrounded by junk food. The person who puts their phone in another room sleeps better than the person who relies on discipline not to check it. The person who sets up automatic savings makes better financial decisions than the person who manually transfers money each month. Environment design is not a hack. It is the fundamental insight of decision science. Your future choices are already being shaped right now by the environment you are currently living in. The question is whether you are the designer or the designed.
There is a persistent belief that good decisions require the removal of emotion, that the ideal decision maker is cool, rational, detached. The neuroscience says the opposite. Patients with damage to the emotional processing regions of the brain, specifically the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, do not become better decision makers. They become catastrophically worse. Without emotional input, they can analyze options endlessly, but cannot choose between them. They understand consequences intellectually, but cannot weight them. They can deliberate forever, but cannot decide. Emotion is not the enemy of good decision-making. It is a required component. But here is the critical distinction. There is a difference between emotional information and emotional contamination. Emotional information, the feeling that a decision doesn't sit right, the discomfort that signals a values conflict, the excitement that indicates genuine alignment with your purpose, the fear that accurately assesses real risk. These emotional signals are data. They should be listened to and integrated into your decision-making. Emotional contamination, the anxiety of the moment distorting a long-term decision, the anger of a recent conflict influencing an unrelated choice, the excitement of a new opportunity bypassing careful evaluation, the fear of loss driving you to hold on when letting go is right. These emotional states are noise. They contaminate decisions that should be made on different grounds. The skill, and it is a learnable skill, is distinguishing between the two. The practical tool is temporal distance. Before making any significant decision, ask, would I make the same decision if I were feeling neutral? If I make this decision in 24 hours, 48 hours, does it still feel right? Decisions that are right, regardless of your current emotional state, are decisions you can trust. Decisions that feel urgent, obvious, and necessary only when you are in a specific emotional state, those are decisions being driven by contamination, not information. The most expensive decisions in most people's lives are made in emotionally contaminated states. The angry email sent, the impulsive investment made, the relationship ended in a moment of peak frustration, the opportunity declined in a moment of peak fear. Time creates distance.
Distance separates information from contamination. Before the decision that matters most, wait. Not forever. Long enough for the emotional weather to reveal whether it was a storm or a signal.